Once you get the two lined up, the coupler should slide together pretty easily. Now that took us all of about 10 seconds. We didn't show you the 20 minutes we spent getting the transmission and the motor level and plumb. The first thing I did was set up the transmission and get it level side to side and then level front to back, or actually top to bottom. And I've used spacers, wood blocks, and wood shims like you'd use for shimming a door. This lets me tweak it just a little bit. Once I've got that set, the motor, because it's nice and square, will actually stand pretty well, but I did have to adjust the height of the motor. You're going to want those two aligned as closely as possible when you design and lay out your plate so that you know the plate will line up with all the pieces. The original plan was to put a large piece of bent steel as the motor plate that'll mount the transmission and then weld to the plate that the motor sits on with some diagonal braces. Ben was nice enough to point out that the drive shaft has to go through here to drive one of the wheels. Doesn't quite fit. So we went back and adjusted our approach to a narrower piece of steel that's the same material that the bottom plate, the motor plate, is made out of. And that will mount in there. And then we went inside the car and measured the diameter of the CV joint that sits at the transmission so we know how much room we're going to need to be able to clear this axle with the plate and not have an interference. So at this point, I want to start marking and drilling the holes to bolt this plate to the transmission. Once that's done, we'll go ahead and weld the two together, hopefully at a perfect 90 degrees. The problem is that the holes on the transmission are not evenly spaced around the transmission, and finding a pattern for that is not necessarily easy. There are two general approaches that we've used. One is to take the transmission, lay it face down, mark all the holes, and then take it to a machine shop or machine it yourself to make your mounting plate. I'm going to take a little different approach here that hopefully will give me accurate holes. I'm going to drill and mount one hole, drill and mount the other hole using some center finders. These are small pin punches that will fit in the hole perfectly and mark the center point of the hole so I can drill the next hole. Once I have two bolts in place, I'll go ahead, bolt the plate on, mark all the rest, and then drill all the holes. Most of the transmission mounting holes are pass-through holes. The hole will go all the way through to the back side. That'll make it fairly easy to locate the hole, drill it, and mount it. One of the holes that we're going to use is a blind hole. It's just a threaded hole with nothing all the way through, so there'd be no way to put a pin punch through and mark the center. So what we're going to do on that one is use that as our first bolt hole. And that way, once that one's located, we can use that and drive the punches through to mark the center of the rest of the holes. The punches are a set of various size rods where there's this pointed tip, hardened tip on each one. You pick whichever one matches the size of your hole, put it in there, tap it with a hammer, and you'll have a small dent right in the center of your hole to guide your drill bit. That's the best way to get holes that line up perfectly with a template, for example, like the transmission here. So our first step is going to be to set that hole and drill it, bolt that one on, do the opposite corner, and then mark the other ones and go ahead and drill them all.